Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland joins us now. He is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
So in the last hour, we had a little civics lesson about the Constitution, and in particular, Donald Trump's lack of understanding about the Fifth Amendment and due process. So just as Alicia led us in with the words of the oath of office, we had a conversation about what those words in the Fifth Amendment say to those that we elect about their duties and their responsibility when it comes to a little thing called due process. Yes. You know a little bit about that as a constitutional lawyer. Help frame for us why does Donald Trump seemingly get away with a higher degree of ignorance about the Constitution to which he's sworn an oath not once but twice, and sits there and looks a reporter in the eye and goes, well, I don't know if I have to follow the Constitution? How to help Americans understand what we're seeing in that moment and why they should be concerned?
Well, I think it's deliberate ignorance. I think it's feigned ignorance because nobody knows due process better than Donald Trump. When he sat there in criminal trial in New York, leading up to his 34 criminal felony convictions, he made sure he had the best lawyers in the country. He made sure he saw all the evidence against him. He decided whether or not to exercise his privilege against self-incrimination. He decided not to take the stand. He brought up all the evidence that they could on their side. He had a unanimous jury deciding. Unfortunately for him, he lost. But he knows exactly what due process is about. He just doesn't think it goes for everybody. Now, in the immigration system, it's not a full-blown criminal trial. It's just you have the right to hear the charges against you. You have the right to put evidence on. It's a different standard of proof. It's easier to deport somebody than it is to convict somebody. But he understands the concept of due process. He knows that the tens of thousands of workers, including thousands of my constituents who've been sacked from their jobs, have not gotten 1 minute of due process from Doge and from Elon Musk. And the whole point of being in the civil service is you're supposed to be judged on the merits of your own job performance. Mm-hmm. But they just ran right over that, and they said on February 14th, the Valentine's Day massacre, they're just going to sack thousands of federal workers because they're on probation. They made it sound like that was something bad. They were on probation because most of them had been promoted and had done excellent work in their prior position, and they were promoted, or else they had just been hired. In any event, the denial of due process is something that runs through everything they're doing. And this is why Donald Trump, he says he doesn't know whether or not he's got to comply with the Constitution. Well, he should know by now because more than 100 courts have entered preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against all of the lawlessness that they've unleashed on the people of America.
I was reminded today that in 2022, Donald Trump actually called for the termination of the Constitution over the 2020 election results and was, rebuked by some in the Republican Party. Other people dodged it, but I guess it shouldn't have been a surprise that he said what he said to Kristen Welker and to others, frankly, since then about the Constitution. Here's the rub here, I guess, as Michael Steele would say. The Constitution is not a suggestion, right? You're a constitutional law expert. It is not a suggestion. It is, in fact, the foundational document that governs how we operate as a country, as a people, to the point where without the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments in the Constitution, we wouldn't be sitting up in here. Mm-hmm. Without the 19th Amendment, there are things that the Constitution, as it has been amended, it has allowed for. And I think it should be really concerning to folks that the President of the United States seems to not believe in that. Is that accurate?
He wants to treat it like some fancy words, like it's the Declaration of Independence, so that's some high-minded ideals, or it's
a beautiful document.
It's Emma Lazarus's poem on the Statue of Liberty, or it's Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. No, this is our operating manual as a country. And to get high-minded about it would be just to say, and it is the covenant that we all agree to because it has meaning. If you look at our Constitution, it's gotten more democratic over time. the vast majority of the amendments we've added since the original Bill of Rights are democratizing amendments, like abolishing slavery, equal protection, no discrimination in voting, direct election of U.S. senators, 19th Amendment, women's suffrage, 23rd Amendment, people in D.C. can vote for president, 24th Amendment, ban on poll taxes, and so on. There's a direction to it. But even if you don't believe in the dynamics of the Constitution, at least believe in the set of rules that are codified in it today, and that includes due process, freedom of speech, equal protection, all those things that he wants to toss out the window.
So we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis. You have the President of the United States giving interviews where he says he doesn't know if it's his job to uphold the Constitution. Meanwhile, your colleagues, House GOP judiciary members, are sending a letter to the D.C. clerk asking for information related to judicial assignment process and why Boasberg was assigned for Trump cases. Why is this their priority?
Because, as usual, they're attacking the messenger. Look, Judge Boasberg was appointed by President Bush to the bench. He's the chief judge of the D.C. District Court. He's seen as a pillar of the conservative legal establishment. He was Justice Kavanaugh's roommate back at Yale. But it's not just him. We've got lots of Republican appointees, even Trump appointees, who are striking down the actions of Doge and Elon Musk and striking down Donald Trump's executive orders. There were 4 judges, 2 Democratic appointees, 2 Republican, who struck down Donald Trump's attempt to repeal birthright citizenship in America. The most eloquent one, I thought, came from a Reagan-appointed judge who said, I've sat on the bench for 4 decades and I've never seen anything more unconstitutional than this, because it tries to overturn the first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States.
Even what we saw on Friday, where you had a Trump-appointed judge out of Texas saying you can't use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people without due process.
Fascist and authoritarian leaders always love to step outside of the Constitution and describe an emergency. So he did that in that case, in the Alien Enemies Act 1798. And his own appointee said, no, you can't do that. We're not at war with Venezuela. If anybody's going to declare war on Venezuela, it's Congress, which is the power under Article 1 to do it. No, we've not been invaded by Venezuela. Anybody can see that, and therefore it doesn't apply. So you use the regular immigration process, which means due process, right? But he's done the same thing with the tariffs. I mean, it's Congress has the power to regulate international commerce, not the president, but he invoked a federal statute, IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, right? For the first time, he uses it for tariffs, and he says there's an emergency. And how do you know there's an emergency? He said, because this has been going on for 4 decades and nobody's done anything about it. That doesn't sound much like an emergency to me.
Yeah, that's the longest emergency in history. It's 40 years.
Yeah.
So you said something that's very important, I think, because it really kind of moves into the next area of the Constitution that Donald Trump seemingly has wild abandon about. When you talk about the fascist dictator kind of mindset to sort of step outside the Constitution, it goes to the heart of what both Simone and Vice President Pence in the clip we heard coming in said, that the foundational aspects of that. So Donald Trump was at a recent National Day of Prayer. Oh. And he had this to say about that other little pesky thing in the Constitution called separation of church and state. Let's take a quick listen to that little ditty.
They say separation between church and state, they told me. I said, all right, let's forget about that for one time. We said, really, the separation? I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. But whether there's separation or not, you guys are in the White House where you should be. And you're representing our country, and we're bringing religion back to our country.
I just like sometimes it's like to drop stuff in the middle of the table, and anybody who wants to feast on it.
I just want to note, this is. They said that they would do this.
Yes.
This has been a movement. I think I heard it was Vice President Harris. I heard her say last week that when she addressed Emerge, part of her speech, and I'm going to paraphrase, but she noted that you have to remember that Donald Trump is a vessel for the chaos, but a plan that has been actively trying to be worked for decades, and he is just the vessel through which this plan is coming into fruition. But what Donald Trump is talking about there is a nod to this institutionalization of Christian nationalism.
Yes.
Like in putting the Bibles in the schools in Oklahoma, putting the 10 Commandments up. That's what he's talking about.
Well, first of all, just because you say you're.
And I love the Lord. I want to preface it with that. I love Jesus, honey. Grew up Baptist, AME now. But come on.
We will all
Even
stipulate.
Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar and give to God what is God. He just
Well.
wants to give to God what
But look,
belongs to Caesar.
just because you say you're going to do something unconstitutional in the campaign, and I don't remember him saying that, but in any event, just because you say that doesn't make it constitutional. I mean, he was talking about in the campaign that, oh, well, I'm going to have 3 terms or 4 terms or whatever. That doesn't mean it's constitutional. The job of the courts is to figure out what the Constitution means, not what somebody said during the campaign or not. But in any event, on this point, there are too many people who are following him in this absolute constitutional nihilism. I mean, Louisiana and Texas have now voted to endorse the 10 Commandments and to post the 10 Commandments. I had MAGA colleagues coming in and saying, we should endorse the 10 Commandments. We should post the 10 Commandments. I said,
Where?
the 10 Commandments
Congress?
have been, and I said the 10 Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the U.S. House of Representatives. But they insist they want to
Throw it
vote.
away. I just tipped over my cup. Throw it away. Can I get a napkin?
They said they wanted to vote on it. And I said, you know what? If we're going to vote on the 10 Commandments in 2025, we should vote on each commandment separately, not the omnibus package. And you shouldn't be allowed to vote for any commandment you've ever violated yourself, because then you'll be taking the name of the Lord in vain.
Oh, that's right. That's a whole different kind of bill now.